My ex-mill sent her church after my daughters. Then I exposed her family's darkest secret. The day my ex-mother-in-law decided to turn an entire church against my daughters was the day she made the biggest mistake of her life. She thought she could rewrite the story, paint herself as the victim, and make everyone believe that my children and I were the reason her family was falling apart. What she didn't know was that I had spent months keeping every piece of evidence she thought would never see the light of day. I wasn't looking for revenge. I wanted peace. I wanted my daughters to heal after losing their father. But when she dragged my children into her lies and publicly humiliated them, I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. My name is Claire, and for 18 years, I believed I had married into a good family. My husband, Daniel, was charming, hardworking, and the kind of person everyone admired from the outside. His parents, Richard and Evelyn, were respected members of their community. They were the kind of people who always had something to say about family values, loyalty, and doing the right thing. Every Sunday, they sat in the front row of their church, smiling like they had the perfect life. But behind closed doors, things were very different. Daniel and I had 2 daughters, Emma and Lily. They were smart, kind, and close to both of us. They looked up to their father and believed he could do no wrong. That changed the day we discovered the truth about him. A few months before Daniel's death, I found out he had been hiding another relationship. At first, I couldn't believe it. I thought there had to be some explanation. But the messages, the lies, and the evidence told a different story. My entire marriage had been built on a secret. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. Instead, he admitted he had made mistakes and begged me not to destroy our family. But something inside me broke. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the fact that he had looked at our daughters every day while hiding the truth from them. I filed for divorce. Daniel's parents were furious. They didn't blame their son. They blamed me. Evelyn called me the night she found out and said something I will never forget. After everything our family has done for you, you're really going to abandon him because of one mistake. One mistake. That was how she described years of lies. I calmly told her that I wasn't abandoning anyone. I was choosing not to live in a marriage where trust no longer existed. She responded, "A good wife would fight for her husband." I replied, "A good husband wouldn't put his wife in this position." That was the moment Evelyn stopped seeing me as family. After Daniel's death in an accident months later, everything became even more complicated. The divorce had not been finalized, and suddenly everyone had opinions about what should happen next. People who had barely called us during our struggles suddenly appeared, pretending to know what was best for my daughters. Evelyn and Richard wanted control. They said my daughters needed their grandparents because I was too emotional and too bitter. They questioned my parenting and suggested that I was keeping the girls away from their father's family. The truth was simple. My daughters were grieving. They had lost their father, but they had also lost the version of him they believed existed. They were dealing with anger, confusion, and heartbreak. They needed time. But Evelyn didn't care about that. She wanted forgiveness on her schedule. She wanted everyone to pretend nothing had happened. Then came the day that changed everything. It was my youngest daughter's birthday month, and I decided to take both girls to a local weekend market. I wanted them to have a normal day. No arguments. No family drama. Just a mother spending time with her children. I gave Lily some money and told her to pick whatever she wanted. She loved little things like sweets, handmade bracelets, and pastries from local vendors. About 40 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Lily. But she wasn't excited. She was crying. "Moms, please come. I don't know what to do." My heart dropped. I immediately started running toward where she told me she was. When I arrived, I saw something I will never forget. My 15-year-old daughter was standing in the middle of a group of women from Evelyn's church. 6 adults. surrounding a child. They weren't comforting her. They were lecturing her. One woman pointed at Lily and said, "You should be ashamed of yourself. Your grandparents raised you better than this." Another said, "God doesn't want families divided. You need to forgive and respect your elders." Lily looked terrified. Then one woman said the words that made me step forward. "Your little siblings need you. Your selfishness is hurting innocent children." That was enough. I walked between them and my daughter. "Move away from her." The women looked surprised. One of them crossed her arms. "We are only trying to guide her." "No," I said. "You are intimidating a teenager in public because you heard one side of a story." Then they turned their attention to me. They accused me of poisoning my daughters against their grandparents. They said I was bitter because of the divorce. They said I was preventing healing. One woman even told me, "If you had been a better wife, maybe your husband wouldn't have strayed." The entire market went quiet. I looked at her and said, "You don't know what happened in my home. And you have no right to attack my children because you believe a lie." Eventually, security stepped in and asked everyone to leave. But the damage was already done. My daughters were hurt. They had been publicly judged by people who didn't know them. That night, after my girls went to sleep, I sat alone and wondered how things had gotten this far. Then I received a message from someone I knew from the church. It simply said, "Claire, you need to see what Evelyn posted." I opened the message. And there it was. A long post in their church group. Evelyn had written an emotional story about how she and her husband were suffering because their grandchildren had abandoned them. She claimed I was keeping the girls away from their family. She claimed she had done nothing wrong. She painted herself as a lonely grandmother who only wanted love. Thousands of people saw it. Hundreds believed it. But she didn't know one thing. She had left out the part where the truth could destroy everything. The screen of my phone glowed in the dark living room, illuminating the tears still dried on my cheeks. Evelyn's post was a masterpiece of manipulation. She played the part of the weeping, pious matriarch to absolute perfection, garnering a wave of sympathetic comments, virtual hugs, and angry rants directed at an anonymous, heartless mother. She thought she was untouchable. She thought her standing in the community, her front row pew, and her well-crafted facade would protect her forever. She forgot about my laptop. In fact, Richard's entire business empire and their luxurious lifestyle were built on a foundation of fraud, embezzling from a family trust that had originally belonged to Daniel's late aunt. A crime Evelyn had not only known about, but actively helped cover up to protect their social standing. Daniel had threatened to expose them himself during one of our arguments, terrified of being implicated in his parents' crimes. I had downloaded everything onto an encrypted external drive, intending to use it only if they tried to strip me of my custody rights in court. I never wanted a public war. But Evelyn had just declared one on my children. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I worked. By sunrise, I had prepared a comprehensive, undeniable dossier. I didn't post it out of blind rage. Every sentence was calculated, every document screenshot was clear, and every financial trail was highlighted. I didn't send it to a tabloid. I replied directly to Evelyn's public post in the church group chat. Instead of a defensive, emotional rant, my message was chillingly calm. "Evelyn," I wrote. "It's a shame you forgot to mention the rest of the story. Like how your son confessed to his double life before he passed. Or how you chose to harass a grieving 15-year-old child in a public market because you can't stand losing control of the narrative." Then, I dropped the first attachment, a screenshot of Daniel's text admitting to the years of deception, complete with timestamps. The chat went dead silent. For 10 minutes, nobody dared to type a word. Evelyn's allies who had been attacking me moments before suddenly vanished from the comment section. Panicking, Evelyn tried to delete her post. But I was faster. I dropped the second part of the dossier, the financial records and legal notices detailing Richard and Evelyn's embezzlement of the family trust, along with an audio recording of Richard aggressively threatening Daniel over the phone for refusing to lie on their behalf. You care more about your reputation in this church than the well-being of your grandchildren, I added in a final message. Leave my daughters alone. If you ever send your church members or cross paths with my children again, the next documents I release won't be sent to a church group. They'll go straight to the federal prosecutor. Within 20 minutes, the entire church group thread was deleted by the administrators. But it was too late. Dozens of people had already downloaded the files, and phones across the community were buzzing. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic for Richard and Evelyn. By afternoon, the church elders released a formal statement announcing that Richard and Evelyn were stepping down from their leadership positions indefinitely. Longtime friends, who had looked down their noses at me in the market, suddenly flooded my phone with awkward, groveling apologies, realizing they had been backing monsters disguised as saints. Evelyn didn't call me to scream. She didn't threaten me. 2 days later, an envelope arrived in my mailbox. Inside was a handwritten, trembling note from Evelyn, begging me to stop, admitting defeat, and promising that they would never contact me or my daughters again. When I showed the letter to Emma and Lily, the heavy, suffocating cloud that had hung over our home finally lifted. They didn't smile right away. Healing takes time, and the scars of losing their father and facing the cruelty of his family wouldn't vanish overnight. But for the first time in months, they looked lighter. They felt safe. We packed a picnic basket that weekend and drove out to the lake, far away from the town, the church, and the echoes of a fake past. Sitting on the grass, watching my daughters laugh as they chased the wind, I knew we had finally won our peace.